Welcome everyone to A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. I'm your host, Tomas Garza, and I want to thank you for joining me here today. Wherever you are joining me from, we've had people here on this live stream from all over the planet, and I'm very grateful that you've joined me, and I hope that you're enjoying this live stream. If you're familiar with the Course in Miracles, we're going through the Workbook for Students, which, as you know, is a series of 365 ideas. All of the ideas have to do with universal spiritual principles that, frankly, one can take and practice and apply no matter what your spiritual or religious background is. This is one of the beauties of the way that the Course is designed as a self-study course where each of us goes at our own pace. And the pace that I'm going through in this live stream, which is daily, may not be your pace at all. And that's perfectly okay. People join this live stream in different places. Some have been longtime students and teachers of a course, and others are maybe new to it. But this is something, if you're interested in universal spirituality, that likely you've heard something about. Likely you've heard something about it because there seems to be, in general, a lot of interest in A Course in Miracles and in this material, which is no mistake, right? It's a very interesting presentation of universal spirituality. Self-study course, so it's not a religion, it's not a tradition where one's required to believe anything, and the only money that I've invested has been in buying the book itself. So it's not one of those types of situations. And again, it applies no matter what your background is. It gives us something practical to work on. And that is one of the components of A Course in Miracles that we're working on right now in this stream. And that is called the Workbook. Now, it's not a school workbook with assignments. And people, since I've been instructing in the course, and since I've been leading workshops and seminars and now this live stream, I've had people come up to me all the time saying, well, it feels too much like school. I don't like the word workbook. All right, well, call it something else. Every idea in the workbook is called a lesson. So how does that ring for you? Hopefully it doesn't sound too much like school. A lesson is an idea that we can practice. And, I just bring this up because we're talking today, in today's idea, about some of the ways that we as human beings limit ourselves. And I do mean grossly, heinously, egregiously limit ourselves and deny who we really are. We'll get to that, but this is just one way, is getting hung up and caught up in semantics and terminology and language. But language, as it's said in the Course, is actually twice removed from reality, because a word, think about it, is not the thing that it represents. The word face, right, is just a series of sounds that we make. It's not the face itself, and the face itself is not who I really am. It may look like it. It may look like I'm talking to you online through this thing called a computer. And in fact, I'm watching myself deliver this live stream on something we call a computer screen. And it's not who we really are. So a word is actually 2 times removed from reality that has never gone anywhere and has never changed. It's outside of the concepts that we hold of space and time and the logical thinking mind, all of that. And if this is something that you have felt in your core, in your gut, in your heart for a long time, yeah, that's a good intuition, because that's right on, it's spot on. And A Course in Miracles presents things from that point of view. It's a presentation of universal spirituality. It's a presentation of ultimate truth, which ultimately, of course, is beyond all words. So I always recommend that Whether you get hung up on language and semantics or not, I always recommend to people that if you are, that, ask yourself why you're curious about this material. A lot of people are. A lot of people are. We've had a lot of people watching this live stream, a lot of people tuning in. And since I have been really heavily involved with A Course in Miracles for the past 8 years, I've had a lot of people ask me questions. And I invite those questions from you as well, from you, the viewers. If you're catching this live, feel welcome to put comments and questions in the comment thread, because I do check these during the live stream, and I also check them throughout the day. So if you're catching this on the replay here on Enlightened World Network or on my personal Facebook page, welcome. And comments are always appreciated. This is what I'm here to do, is I'm here to help, I'm here to serve, and I'm here to present my own experience with these teachings. So that's the backdrop. And today we are in Workbook Lesson 72. So today's idea, of course, follows up on yesterday's idea. You'll have noticed that it's a logical sequence that we're being led through, where one idea builds upon another. And if you practice one day's idea, then the following day will supplement that and add a little bit more information and practical experience. You've got to supply the practical experience. We got the information right here. So lesson 72, holding grievances. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. We've looked in some of the previous days, the fact that love holds no grievances. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Yesterday we looked at only God's plan for salvation will work. So whether you're comfortable with the word God or not, they use it here in A Course in Miracles. Words like Holy Spirit, terms like that, Jesus, and also the ego from Eastern philosophy, which we'll talk about today, and well, pretty much every day. So whatever words you choose to use, I would invite you to make your best effort to move beyond any hangups. I get why people have hangups about the word God. Not everybody does, but a lot of people do. I get that. I was raised in a fundamentalist church and spent some time having that very same hangup in this lifetime. I really did, because I associated it with judgmentalism, with an attitude of my building is better than your building, and I'm superior because I go to this building at 11 o'clock on Sunday and you go to another building across the street. Therefore, you're going straight to hell. Well, it never resonated with me. So, it's come up a couple of times today that words can be sticking points for us. So when we're talking about God's plan for salvation, here's what we're talking about. We're talking about the opposite of the ego's plan for salvation, right? The ego, pretty much our separate sense of self, would like nothing more than to replace God, to replace the only power that really actually is. Would love that. Would love that. And the ego has us identifying as separate, identifying as a separate self, running around doing battle, really battle, pitched battle with other people. And the ego's holy temple is the body, the physical body with which we identify in this world. So A Course in Miracles has a very interesting take on the body, and it says in many places that a body is a communication mechanism. It's a tool for communicating with one another. That's true, if you think about it. This is what it's for. This means we're capable of using it to extend love and extend loving thoughts, forgiving thoughts, peaceful thoughts. And we're also capable of choosing fear and using the body to lash out at other bodies, to make war, to yell at people, to tweet mean and evil and hateful things. Why? Because we can. For example, the body is pretty much a limit on communication. It's a limit on communication. Why? Because it's not who we really are. Now, this is something that the ego is terrified of, and it might be something that we actively resist as human beings. And if you do, that's not a problem. It's quite normal. There's nothing wrong with us at all. The, the fact that we place limits on our communication means that we are suffering. If you identify as a separate sense of self, then you'll see yourself as under attack, as constantly under threat, right? Whether it's by somebody on the other side of the world or someone right here at home who has a different political belief than you do. That you might be tempted to see yourself as under attack. What happens when someone feels under attack? Well, a couple of things. One, they get defensive and they may hide and harbor really nasty thoughts about the people that they think are attacking them, or they lash out, or both. And we get conflict, everything. So what we really are, who we really are, is unlimited and beyond any limitations, including the physical body, including concepts like space, like time. If you don't believe it, that's okay. Really, it's all right if you don't. One of the beauties of A Course in Miracles says you don't have to believe these ideas. We're just asked to practice them. So what that means is we read the commentary on the day's idea and do our best to practice it. That's all that's being asked. Nobody's being asked against their will to believe something. I mean, how'd that work out? It didn't work out for me. I was asked against my will to believe that all of my neighbors who were going to another building across the street were doomed to go straight to hell because they didn't go to our building at 11 o'clock on Sunday. I mean, ridiculous, right? Right. Yeah. So all of our grievances, and the idea is grievances, holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. All of our grievances relate to the physical body when we think about it. Somebody offends us. Someone who cuts us off on the freeway is committing, according to the ego's thought system, and therefore our thought system in the world, a horrible offense on the human body. Why? If you cut somebody off on the freeway, there's a possibility that you could get into an accident and get very seriously hurt or die. That is a perceived attack. A tweet is a perceived attack. It is, right? Attack on whom? On the body. Yeah. So, it's no surprise that with all of these perceived attacks, it can be a process for us to find a way out of that. But what is apparent in the world is that every time we hold a grievance, we limit ourselves and we limit everyone else. We limit everybody else because we're not seeing ourselves or other people for who they really are. And in fact, in the world, if you're following along and you're thinking, well, we really don't see things then as they really are, you would be right about that. We don't see things as they actually are. We see them as we are. In other words, through our perception. If we identify with the ego, with a physical body, that's how we see everything and everyone else. That's where we get fear thoughts from, because we think that we're going to be under attack. We see attack everywhere. Now we could choose to see love and union and joining instead of that. That is the essence of spirituality. It's the essence of the present moment, which is the only moment that we really have. It's an opportunity for us to choose love instead of fear, God instead of the ego. So by seeing somebody as a cut off, separate physical entity, we're not seeing them as they really are. Now, if we were to see them as they really were, then how different things would be. Yeah. And how do we get there? Well, we do things like this. We work on spiritual practice. For you, that might be meditation practice or yoga, or it might be something else that doesn't technically line up as spiritual, but it might be very deeply relaxing and peaceful for you, like a walk, like a hike, or something like physical activity, like a hot bath, like gardening. I mean, anything, any activity can actually be a spiritual activity in the world. Now, it doesn't have to look like this and take this form. This is just one of many possible forms. And well, I'm talking here on this live stream, teaching this because it really resonates with me and I've seen tremendous changes. Now, what's going to really resonate with you? Well, you've got to see that for yourself. Yeah, that's the beauty of all of this, is we have never lost our free will and our ability to choose our own path. And while it looks like we have millions of choices, we have but one choice: love or fear. So what happens when we identify in the world with a physical body? Well, we love it and we hate it at the same time, don't we? We criticize it. We get frustrated with it because it's limited. It is limited in time. It's not going to last forever. And we don't, when we're 70, have the same strength. Well, most of us don't, that we did when we were 25. Right? Things change. Our hormone levels fluctuate. Sometimes we get sick. We have to go to the doctor. All kinds of things happen to it. And we both love the body and loathe it. There are people in the world that hurt themselves deliberately. Mm. Yeah, in many different ways for many different reasons. And then there are people that love the body so much that they hyper identify with it. And, take someone that's addicted to sex, for example, and, that what happens when that's no longer an option for the physical body due to, well, the passage of time, right? What happens? What happens to people? There's tremendous suffering in the end because it's not all rainbows and unicorns. If you identify with a physical body, there's going to be moments of pure bliss. Make no mistake about it. Yeah, there are going to be moments where you feel absolutely joyful and elated, and then they will be also punctuated with moments of frustration, moments of doubt, lack, limitation, where you're acutely aware of just how finite this all is. And if you're willing to entertain the idea that there's more to it than that, then therein is the way to experience lasting happiness. Just even realizing, okay, there's more to it than this. So, what is God's plan for salvation? Well, ask. If you're not sure, ask. Ask your guides. Ask whomever your teacher is. Whatever this is universal spirituality. Again, the Course uses terms like God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit that are familiar to people in a Judeo-Christian tradition. If your tradition is otherwise, who are your guides? Ask them. Ask them what the plan is in honesty and in as close to stillness as you can get, and you will get an answer. How are you answered? Well, you might not receive a verbal answer in your native language. You may get a feeling, or an event may take place in your life that will show you the next steps, the path. We have only to be open to it and allow it. And there's a lot that can be said and is said in spirituality about getting out of our own way. And that's what I mean by that, is allowing this plan to play out in your life and trying to stop orchestrating it yourself. Because we do that. We do it all too often. We spend a lot of time and a lot of energy and money sometimes, quite honestly, trying to control our experience just so, only to find out that ultimately we could spend as much money or time or energy as we want to, and we're still unable to fully and completely exercise the control that we were seeking. It's much better to admit that we're not able to do that and ask. And that's what lesson 72 has us do, is ask. So a lot going on here right now in this section of the workbook. The commentary on the day's ideas are quite long because we're seeing certain things for the first time. We're seeing forgiveness treated in the workbook for the first time. We're seeing concepts like holding grievances treated in depth for the first time, and God's plan for salvation. We're seeing, and we've seen that for the last couple of days, for the first time here in the workbook. Now, if you're interested in further elaboration on this, I can always recommend the text which precedes the workbook in the combined edition of A Course in Miracles. The text talks about these ideas in greater detail, and it can be a very helpful resource. Also, the Manual for Teachers, which is shorter than the workbook that follows the workbook, is a series of questions and answers about terminology in the course, because you'll have noticed that we use things differently. The course defines things and uses different ideas for words like forgiveness and atonement, things like that, that we conventionally think of one way in the world in conventional parlance. It means something different in A Course in Miracles. That's a very handy section. So I can certainly recommend both of those in addition to the workbook for students, which is what we're going through here on the live stream. So I want to thank all of you who are tuning in today. We've got a couple people on here. Hello, Andrea. How are you? And thanks for tuning in. If anyone has any comments, I am absolutely happy to answer questions and address comments here in the live stream. So just go ahead and place those in there. And this is a daily live stream. So if you have thoughts, questions about this, feel welcome to reach out to me. And I'll be back here tomorrow with lesson 73. We're following the workbook in sequential order. So wherever you are, I do want to say the back episodes of this live stream are available on the YouTube channel for Enlightened World Network. And again, the title of this live stream is A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. And I'm Tomas Garza. So thank you for joining me. I will see you back again here tomorrow.